It's the Hoffman Show on a Friday here on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app and streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. It is a day in sports where a champion could be decided tonight. It is the Celtics and Mavericks. Boston leads 3-0. Dallas is in trouble. That's where we're going to start the show. We'll get to the latest twist and turn in Caitlin Clark's ongoing unfortunate centerpiece and discussions that aren't really about her coming up at 4:30. Sam 48, 5 o'clock. There's a new study that got released by the city of D.C. Mayor Bowser actually talked about it on the Sports Junkies yesterday. Sam and Michael Bryce Sadler, who's also been on the show, reported on it. So we will discuss the city's latest attempt to convince us all that RFK is a great financial decision coming up in just a little bit. But we do start with the NBA Finals tonight. And Anthony, I want to start on the Celtics side of it. I want to talk about Luka in a second because we actually didn't get to Luka as much the other day. But I think the conversation around the Celtics has gotten to a weird place. Statistically speaking, should the Celtics close this thing out tonight, we are looking at one of the greatest teams in NBA history. They would be 80-20. There's just not a lot of teams that have won 80% of their games, obviously. Even some of the great Warriors and Bulls teams that won 70+ in the regular season, they obviously won. If you win 70, you have to win 16 to win the title. You win 86. But win percentage-wise, if you drop, if you have a 6-game, 7-game series in the playoffs, all of a sudden your win percentage is going to drop down a little bit. And those all-time great teams have been able to do that, hold a 80+% win percentage on the year. But to play just 100 games to win a title would be remarkable. Like, that is an all-timer type of run through the NBA playoffs. And the other metrics that people use in terms of point differential, absolutely, like, they belong statistically in the conversation for one of the greatest teams that we have ever seen in the NBA. But I also think we're allowed to be adults about this and be like, well, hold on a second. Because realistically, Anthony, if I ask you, head-to-head series, 2017 Warriors or 2016 Warriors, you pick KD version or the OG murderous version with Iguodala and even with Harrison Barnes, but like that bench was deeper. Sean Livingston, Leandro Barbosa, like that crew. I mean, I know they didn't win, but the 16 Warriors, the 73 win team, like, you take that team versus this Celtics team in a finals, who you got? Really? You give me the 17. You give me the 7. Yeah, you give me the 17 version where Durant is at the peak of his powers and Steph is at the peak of his. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. That, and also, like, how are these Celtics scoring? Because the Warriors are a better version of what they are. They're better shooters. They're better switch. Do you need a reminder of how good that team was? They had Draymond Green, Defensive Player of the Year. Kevin Durant was an all... Who's Draymond guarding? Hold on. Did you just ask who Draymond Green is guarding? He's guarding whoever he wants. That's kind of the point. He can literally guard 1 through 5. Yeah, prime Draymond Green is doing as good of a job on those guys as anybody ever could. He's so strong. He's so quick. Like, that dude anchored a top 5 defense year after year after year after year because of who he was. Andre Iguodala is also there. Clay is 6'7" and also there. Like, they got dudes. LeBron was the peak of his powers, LeBron. But you're actually getting to the point that I was going to make here, which is Okay, maybe the Warriors, it's a more recent example, and clearly your respect for them is lower than it should be. 2000 Lakers, 96 Bulls. Like, these teams, you're probably, if you adjust them for as good as they were to their era, like, you're not, you don't look at this team and say, like, it's the same. And the reason is because I don't think, like, those teams have first ballot Hall of Fame guys and like top 20 all time players. And in the 17 Warriors case, since I apparently have to defend the honor of the 2017 Warriors, a thing I didn't think I'd have to do, they have at least 3 first ballot Hall of Famers. If you want to say only 2 in Steph and Durant in terms of top 20 guys for sure. Steph's a borderline top 10 guy, if not a solidified top 10 guy all time. Durant is one of the greatest scorers in the history of the game. Draymond is not a top 20 guy, but is the best defensive player of an era and completely changed the game in terms of the switchability and all that kind of stuff and was the anchor. Clay is also a Hall of Famer. Even if he's not first ballot, he's close. Iguodala is actually a borderline Hall of Famer as well. So, like, we're talking about the upper echelon and depth. They had it all. And I think that's the thing that separates the Celtics team. And Tatum and Brown, maybe they get there. Maybe 5 years from now, this looks like a silly thing because Jason Tatum keeps ascending. But, like, I don't think that at the end of Jason Tatum's career, not that he won't be a first ballot Hall of Famer, because, again, the Basketball Hall of Fame is real easy to get into relative to other Hall of Fames. But I don't think Jason Tatum finished his career in the conversation for being a top 20 player all time. And if we're talking about this level of greatness, this level of all time, like, who are the best teams ever, it's impossible to be in that group in basketball where 5 dudes are on the floor and one guy has so much impact without having an MJ, a LeBron, a Magic, a Kareem, like Bill Russell, Steph Curry. Like, you have to have one of those guys, and this team doesn't. And I think if you have a better Eastern Conference, their win total isn't as high, their point differential is not as high. Not that they wouldn't have won it, not that they're not the best team in the NBA, not that they're not a deserving champion, not that they're maybe in the next tier down, that they are truly an all-time deserving champion team. But I think when we start talking about just the numbers and letting the numbers drive this conversation, numbers are a measure of what happened, and what happened was they were thoroughly dominant through a terrible Eastern Conference. And to just dismiss that and be like, well, the numbers are the numbers. And it's like, yeah, if you let me play one-on-one against a baby, I would also win 11-0, which is the same score that Jason Tatum would beat a baby by, but me and Jason Tatum aren't the same. And, like, that context, I just feel like is lost in some of the discussion here. And it's not meant to, like, discredit the Celtics. The point is to win the Larry O. And barring disaster, they're going to do it. But I do think that we have gotten, like, some people praising this team have gotten a little out over their skis. And I will say, I think part of it is because they look to the future and think this could be the first of a couple of championships because contractually they're in amazing shape. Tatum, Brown, and Holiday are all under long-term deals. Derek White has another year left on his deal. And as long as those 4 are together, they're the favorite in the East, and barring some massive change of a super team. So I think people are just getting ahead of themselves is really what I would say here. Not that we shouldn't celebrate the Celtics if they win tonight. Not that they wouldn't have had one of the best seasons ever. Just that season requires context, and it's okay to say that out loud. You don't have to apologize. Yeah. I think the 2017 Warriors are the most unbeatable team that's ever been in the NBA. Like, I realize that's going to make some people from the 90s mad, and that's not meant to say that they would sweep the 96 Bulls, because the 96 Bulls were incredible, and the 2000 Lakers were ridiculous. But, like, they started 4 Hall of Famers. Maybe 5. Their death lineup was 5 Hall of Famers if Iggy gets in. And they were all relatively close to their peak. Iggy's at the end of his. Draymond, Clay, Steph, and KD are all in the dead heart of their primes. I take it back. You should have apologized. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. When we get back, Luka Doncic, he's the best player in the series, allegedly. He would qualify for a guy who's potentially top 20 all-time when it's said and done. So what do we make of what he did in Game 3, and can he salvage, what does this dot on his resume mean if this goes sideways tonight, / what do we expect from Luka tonight? The Doncic / Dallas angle next on tonight's NBA Finals here on the Hoffman Show. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We are streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. You can leave a comment in the chat. Try to check them during the old commercial breaks. Sam Fortier joining us at 5 p.m. Tonight, Luka Doncic looking to bounce back in the NBA Finals. The Maverick superstar, not ejected, but fouled out. I don't know why... Anthony, why do I keep wanting to say he got ejected? Disqualified. No longer participating due to the breaking of procedural rules. Yeah, he didn't get ejected. That implies like 2 technicals or a straight red, if you will. Happy Euros, everybody. Yeah, I kind of can't believe. So that's the thing about the other night, right? Is I understand why Luka was frustrated. They let a lot of stuff go. They did let a lot of stuff go both ways. They missed a ton of fouls in that game, but they also let Luka yell a lot. And honestly, I actually wonder if that didn't do him a favor because he just kept going. And if he got a tech, maybe he would have chilled out and refocused and been like, all right, I got it off my chest, but I know I can't get another one. And instead, he just kept digging and digging and digging and digging and digging that hole. And all of a sudden, he found the bottom and out he went. I kind of think tonight goes one of two ways for Luka. I think he either loses his mind and has a night. Like he just has that game, that first half of what was it, game 6, game 5, whatever the last game was against Minnesota, where he's like, I'm the baddest dude in this league. I'm going to prove it. Screw everyone. I'm just going to, and he just goes nuts. And if that's the case, Dallas has a good chance. They need more help. They need, for instance, Jason Tatum to not do that because that's kind of what happened in game 3 is Kyrie and Luka got going in the first half, but Tatum kept Boston afloat, and then Jaylen Brown came on in the second half, and Luka did not continue the hot shooting, and there it goes. They're down 3-0. But there's a chance that he just completely dominates the game in a way that takes over and that gets them back to Boston for a game 5. I think the other way is it kind of just keeps happening like it's been happening. Like I would be surprised after that game that he had if he totally imploded and had a 12-point game where he goes 3 for 19. I just don't think that's who Luka is. He's too good. He said the kind of what I would consider the right thing after, where he's like, you know what? I'm not going to let the refs get to me. I'm just going to go have fun. Even when the refs get to him, like he still had a very productive night. It's not as good as it could have been. And I think it affects his attitude, affects the rest of the team. But it's not like he had 4 points. Like he still had high 20s, low 30s. I can't remember what the total was, but like he was awesome. And so the question becomes like, can you elevate your teammates? But I do think the biggest thing for Luka is, yes, attitudinally and how you interact with the refs, how you interact with your teammates, all that kind of stuff. But they also got to find a way to play differently. And if Boston is not going to double and Boston is going to not give up the catch and shoot threes that have been the lifeblood of the Mavs offense, where they haven't cracked 100 in the series, like he's got to punish that at such an insane level that Boston blinks. Because what typically happens, I talk about this all the time, man. You've heard me say this how many dozens of times at this point, is basketball NBA series are a series of adjustments until one team can't adjust to something. They're just out of personnel. They're out of tactics. They're out of everything. And the team that makes the last adjustment wins. Boston hasn't even had to adjust yet. That's how dominant they've been defensively in terms of their schematics and how stout they've been in preventing the things that Dallas wants to get. There's been minor stuff, but on the whole, Dallas hasn't forced Boston to blink. We are 3 games into the series. That's a shocking analysis for a team that's down 3-0. Real bad for the Mavericks and not great for Luka. That's the thing, is like that's just not who he is as a player, right? Like, this is a guy that likes to pass and he's excellent at it. But if I'm Jason Kidd, I'm telling him tonight, man, I want you to be hyper aggressive looking for your shot. If the double comes, and like if your instincts tell you to pass, pass. But I want you programmed to score. And anybody who's played and had that mode knows what that feels like when it's different, right? Like if you're naturally hey, let me spread the ball around type of player, and you just decide it's time to go, like it's time to score, the way you drive, the way you handle, the way you decision make changes. And he's got to get in that mode, like he did in that Minnesota game where he's just like, it's time to go, it's time to close. And that's, I think, what ultimately Luka Doncic is going to have to do to make Boston change what they're doing defensively. And then it's going to come down to the other guys to hit shots. I think there's also kind of the big picture question of what this means for Luka. And obviously it's impossible to know, because if they make the finals the next 3 years in a loaded Western Conference and he wins 2 of them, like, this ain't going to matter that much. But I think this is obviously a pivotal point in Luka's career where some of the guys that have tried to get through to him that haven't been able to, when it comes to being a better teammate, being better with the refs, like all that stuff, him understanding, like, now you're the leader. You're not just the best player, because he's been the best player on professional teams since he was 16 years old. This dude won the EuroLeague MVP at 17 before he got drafted, or the Spanish League MVP. It's the second best league in the world, and he won the MVP at 17, and then he went to the NBA. So he is used to being the best player. But as you get older, there's a responsibility when you're the best player to become a leader. And do you elevate your teammates by more than just your play? And the ones that do win championships. The ones that don't. And there's more to it than that. But this is either going to be the turning point for Luka with where he's at age-wise at, I believe, 25, or it's going to be a big piece of evidence why he just, despite being great, couldn't quite crack that all-time upper echelon of the pyramid of the greatest basketball players of all time, because those are the margins at that level. Yeah, because at the end of the day, that stuff's not helping him win. If he won, if they were tied in this series, or they were down 2-1, or, these games have been more competitive and he hadn't got ejected. Sorry, I did it again. He hadn't fouled out with 4 minutes to go in a close finals game, then people would have less bad things to say. It's not so much that it's souring us for some superfluous reason. Like, it changes the facts on the ground. It changes the available evidence. Like, the data is different. And so I do think that matters, because how you lead and how you elevate your teammates when you're the best player is a game changer. Like, your game can be great. Can you make everyone else as good as they can be? And the answer right now for Luka is, yes, I can be great. No, I don't make everyone else as great as they could be, or as good as they could be. And that is the margins of winning a championship or not, especially against a team that's as good as Boston. And as aforementioned, Boston ain't going anywhere. Like, they've got this core back together, because they have the 4 that are playing plus Porzingis. Like, all them dudes are under contract. And there's going to be some tough decisions that are made down the roster. But if you're going to start with something pretty good, that's the thing that you start with, is Porzingis, White, Holiday, Brown, Tatum. They're all coming back, at least for next year, unless they decide to pull the rug a year early because White's going into the final year of his contract. But they win a title, like, they're not going to do that. They might sign him to an extension and then just deal with the repercussions later. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, every time I think the Caitlin Clark story might finally start to die down and the conversation and some of the things that are said, something else happens. And yesterday, something else happened, but ultimately, I think it was a good thing. But it also made me think about a question that I'd like to ask rhetorically to the audience. What it made me think in that question: next on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Sam Fortier, 5 o'clock. You will hear him discuss Washington, D.C.'s new report that didn't say the things it was really supposed to say about what it would cost the city to get RFK stadium and do the whole deal that they've been talking about. Mayor Bowser was on the Sports Junkies if you want to hear her take on it. But if you want some neutral, just good fact-based reporting from Sam Fortier, make sure you're tuned in at 5 p.m. We'll talk a little football as well with the Commanders minicamp done and dusted. Right now, though, we talk about a story that will not go away, which is the continued discussion around Caitlin Clark. And I want to be really clear here that this is mostly discussion around Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark is trying her damnedest to be a good WNBA player, and that takes a lot of attention. It is an incredibly difficult league where she is struggling at times while also excelling at times. It is a mixed bag because that is the nature of being an extraordinarily talented young player in a new place. You, as David Aldridge put the other day, have to take your lumps. It doesn't mean that you're going to be terrible. It doesn't mean that you're not going to play. It doesn't mean that you're consistently bad. It means that some nights you're a flamethrower from 3 and you're putting up 30. Some nights you put up 3 and have 8 turnovers. And sometimes you put up 30 and have 8 turnovers. Like that has been Caitlin Clark's season. It is a fluctuation through all of that. Meanwhile, around her, while she is not really locked into it because she is staying off of social media, there are many conversations around her, whether it's her place on the Olympic team or the popularity of the league and all of this stuff. And unfortunately, a lot of that conversation has had racist and or misogynistic undertones. And that got loud enough that yesterday there was a fairly generic question asked about it by Jim Trotter early in the morning from The Athletic about it. And Caitlin was basically like, I just try not to focus on it. I'm trying to play basketball, basically. And that caused a response because obviously if these things are being brought up, like renouncing them and denouncing them is not hard. But the question was fairly generic from what I understand. I haven't actually heard that back and forth, but certainly some did, including Connecticut Sun guard Dejanay Carrington, who was like, this is not okay. Like, if these things are happening, like your name is behind them, you should denounce them. And while the aggressiveness of Carrington's tweet had some colorful language, etc., I don't know that was the best way to get the message across. I don't know, again, like Caitlin's a young person trying to figure out how to be in the spotlight, and she's kind of focused on her thing. Like, that's a kind of a separate conversation. But later in the day, there was another reporter who said, like, I know you want to focus on basketball, but like, this is more specifically what we're asking about. Can you talk about this? And Caitlin obliged, and this is what she said. In some ways, she could not be more right. And the only reason I even say in some ways is because I think sometimes we expect athletes, especially as we talk about sports or entertainers or whatever, to give these complex dissertations on race or culture or misogyny or sexism or complex topics that are college level courses. And there's obviously long histories and all kinds of things that go into that. But there also is just the baseline level of human respect that these conversations that are invoking her as, oh, this thing, like are happening or having that are just so plainly humanly out of bounds that I actually appreciate her not giving a dissertation in a weird way. Because I do think it's the responsibility of athletes to kind of understand their place in the world on some level. And there have been some really tremendous quotes, specifically, frankly, from white WNBA players over the years who have gotten undue amounts of attention based off their skill level or based off their career attributes to date. And they basically been like, yeah, I realize why you're looking at me because I am straight and white and pretty or whatever combination of those things. And the media, that might get you more clicks compared to my colleagues who are better players. And I'm a basketball player. And I think that how many clicks we get should be more based on the basketball. Realize that's not how marketing works, but now this is me talking, not them. Like, that's not how marketing works. And there's obviously a balance of the two. But, you know, when you say, oh, there hasn't been those stories told, whatever, tell the stories. There are incredibly compelling stories all across the WNBA, but most people don't know about them. And Kelsey Plum and Cameron Brink have given tremendous responses about some of these things and have tried to use their platforms to elevate others or refused attention at times. In Kelsey Plum's case, Kelsey Plum actually blocked the WNBA on Instagram because they wouldn't stop tagging her when she was not particularly playing well and didn't feel like she deserved it in a league where she was getting waxed by women who were much better. And she's like, tag them. Like, show them. Just because people have heard of me or like me for any of these reasons doesn't mean that you as a league should give into that. And on that very human level, I appreciate Clark just being like, one, on a human level, why are people doing this? This is not okay. Be kind, be better. Don't commit the isms. So that's part one. And part two, the thing that I hope that actually a lot of fans, and I don't have any faith that this will actually happen because I think a lot of people are dug in and they're fighting proxy culture wars. And it's at that level, it's identity level politics. And I know, like, what I'm about to say is not going to change anyone's mind. I'm just laying out the facts as it is. And either you're going to agree with them and say, like, yes, those are the facts as they are, or you think that my facts aren't actually factual and you're going to disagree, and that's fine. But the way I see it is this. At that level, you were talking about identity level politics, and those are damn near impossible to change, and no public figure is ever going to change your mind on those. The way that political science works when we're talking identity level politics, like if you want to change your uncle's vote or your nephew's vote to your candidate based off of a certain issue, it's going to require that personal relationship. So me saying anything, or even Caitlin Clark, a celebrity that you might love watching play basketball, and you might be quote unquote fighting on her behalf, on her valor to make the Olympic team, or because you think it would be the right move for the growth of the game, like, her saying something that goes against your argument actually isn't going to change your mind. But if you're open-minded and you want to listen to Caitlin Clark, she's the one saying as loud as anyone, whenever she's asked, these women that you are putting down are my idols. These women that you are saying are not good or not worthy or not anything mean everything to me. So please stop doing that on my behalf. And this goes to like this deeper thing that I'm just going to call out right now in a very direct way, because we don't do this in other sports. And I will use as an example a YouTube comment that was left on one of the segments that I did this week by Scott Clark 1551. So Scott, congrats, it's your day in the sun. And he goes, you couldn't pay me to watch a WNBA game. And if that's true, that's fine. There's no one there. It doesn't make you a bad person because you don't want to watch WNBA basketball. What I find, frankly, weird and even more sinister than weird, like what I find unbecoming and what is, by definition, misogynistic, is the fact that there is a large group of people, predominantly men, who brag about that on the internet as if it is something to be proud of. I think men's college basketball stinks. I think it's a terrible product. I don't go on
people who like college basketball on the men's side on their videos and comment, I think your sport sucks. You couldn't pay me to watch it. I'm not a big Major League Baseball fan or baseball fan in general. It's just not my thing. I follow it enough to know what's going on to do my job. But if I didn't do this, I wouldn't have any clue. I would put it this way, because many of you could argue correctly that I don't have any clue on what's going on in Major League Baseball day to day anyway. And guess what? You might be right. But I certainly would have less of a clue if I didn't get paid to have the small amount of a clue that I do. It's not my thing. That's fine. It's not my entire identity. It's no part of my identity. I'm not like, I'm not a baseball guy. And I sure as you know what, don't go on YouTube or on Twitter and find baseball Twitter and find baseball YouTube and leave comments saying, you couldn't pay me to watch a Major League Baseball game. Because that's weird. You guys enjoy it. I'm not trying to yuck your yum. What's your point? You couldn't pay me to watch a WNBA game. Okay, but you found this video on the WNBA and left a comment for free? And that's just what I don't want to say I don't understand it, because I do. And my understanding of it is it's rooted in the same exact things that Caitlin Clark said yesterday are disappointing and unacceptable. And I think that's the thing that needs to be put up in flashing lights here. And to be very, very clear here, this is not an indictment of folks who watch a WNBA game and go, this ain't for me. I just don't like the product. I'm going to move on and I'm going to go watch baseball or do something, play with my kids or do anything else during the summertime. No one is trying to browbeat you, or at least I am not. And I think most people watching who love the sport are not trying to browbeat you into watching women's basketball. What we don't really understand is why you're so loud, so vociferous, so emphatic in telling us. That's a weird bit. That one, you should look yourself in the mirror and be like, why am I doing this? What am I accomplishing? Because that ultimately is the problem. It's not that people don't want to watch something they don't want to watch. It's that they make it an enormous part of their identity for reasons that I don't think have anything to do with the sport itself. It's very much about who's playing it. And those reasons, they're not a good reflection of the people who are stomping their feet on the internet telling us that they couldn't be paid to watch said games. That's the thing here. That's the upsetting thing. That's the problematic thing. The rest of it's a disagreement in taste. That's perfectly allowed. That's perfectly fine. There's no moral judgment in taste when it comes to which sports you watch. There is more of a, wait, what? When not watching something because of who's playing it becomes an outsized part of your expressions and what you do, how you identify. It's frankly weird, but it's also worse than that. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. We will wrap up the hour with much lighter news. The Wizards are going to play a game in Mexico City. We're going to talk about it next. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. Coming up at the top of the hour, that, of course, is 5 p.m., Sam Fortier will join us. He will talk about the Commanders' continued pursuit of RFK Stadium and the mini camp that just wrapped up. So all that from Fortier in just a few minutes. Right now, though, Anthony, announcement today, the Wizards are going to play a basketball game against the Miami Heat in Mexico City in November. It is November 2nd, which I need to check the old calendar. What day of the week is that? Because I think we should take the show. That's my own. Oh, it's a Saturday. So it does appear to be the Commanders. Is that the Commanders bye week, or is the Commanders game just not in my schedule or in my calendar? It doesn't look like it's in my calendar potentially. But what do we think about taking the show to Mexico City?
That would be a lot of fun. Mexico City. How far is that?
That's a good question. I think it's like a 3 or 4 hour flight. I mean, New Orleans is like 2.5, and you just keep going another, I'm guessing, hour and a half ish. I don't know. My Mexican geography is not great. That's not I've never gone to like Cancun or any of the other Mexican tourist destinations, or not Oaxaca, your less touristy, more authentic destinations. I have not been. So my Mexican flight knowledge is not high. The Commanders that weekend, they play at the Giants on Sunday.
Oh, we won't be here anyway. I said we wouldn't be here for the game anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I can watch that game on the flight back. I don't see why the Wizards wouldn't just take us. You know, there's going to be a couple days of activities and activations beforehand.
Yep.
I can eat tacos as part of a promotion, and the other delicious Mexican food. I'm happy to experience Mexican culture. I'll dance. I'll listen to music. I will
pay you $1,000 to dance. I would love to see you dance.
If I'm like with experts.
Oh, okay.
Who are like teaching us stuff. I mean, they should pay you to dance. But that's a different story. Whatever we got to do to go. I like experiencing new cultures. I love traveling. I love travel that's paid for even more.
Yeah.
So, to the Wizards marketing folks, to our bosses at Odyssey, Anthony and I are volunteering for you to pay for our trip to Mexico. Is that how volunteering works? We are volunteering for you to pay for our trip to Mexico City to watch the Wizards play basketball against the Miami Heat and partake. We'll help out. If you need me to MC an event, I'll switch my Duolingo to Spanish right now. It's definitely going to go better than my French.
I think that's the way to go, Craig. My dad always told me closed mouths don't get fed. And I think, everybody has heard you loud and clear. Hopefully they come through.
I am certainly hoping so. Now that I've done my begging and my pleading, Anthony, what % chance do you think it is that we go?
That we go?
Yeah.
That it's sponsored.
That we go without paying for ourselves to go, which is not going to happen.
Yeah. I'm looking at maybe a 30, 40.
You think it's that high? I was going to go with 2.
Maybe 20.
I was going to go like 2%.
Dang.
I don't like our chances.
Or maybe 1.
I'm hoping that I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong. I would love to be sent to Mexico City for this monumentous event.
I might have just been overly optimistic. That's probably what it was.
Yeah.
20.
The Bulls got to go to Paris last year. Mexico City's great. I want to go to Europe. Send me there.
That's where but
honestly,
You're going,
honestly, I'm going to Paris. I'm going to Europe. I want to go to Mexico City. See, Mexico City is exactly where I want to go. Wizards, y'all have my number. Send me to Mexico City. You have nothing else going on right now. No draft to worry about. No free agents to worry about. Nothing more important than making sure that your radio home, afternoon show, the home of the Dave Johnson Show on game days,
Yep.
goes to Mexico City. When we get back on this shameless radio program, Sam Fortier, an actual reporter with real credentials. That used to be me. Now I just am a hack who's trying to get travel paid for. Sam Fortier joins us. Sam, of course, the Commanders beat reporter for the Washington Post. Reaction to minicamp and some thoughts wrapping up there. But also, he and Michael Bryce Sadler at the Post did a great piece wrapping up this and summarizing, analyzing this report that the city produced that was supposed to tell us how much RFK Stadium would cost. It didn't quite reach that goal. Sam has the details next. Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980. More updates from the U.S. Open, half past and top of every hour, 30 and 00. Since apparently no one knows what bottom and top of the hour are. Just bringing it back, Anthony. Can never give it up.
It's a great callback.
It is what it is. Some people don't even realize what's going on. And now I've double confused them. That's okay. I'm going to stop talking now, and we're going to get today's top story and bring in a good friend to help us break it down.
Today's top story from the perspective of someone who's there.
You are looking live.
This just in.
Not my beat.
In a shocking turn of events, a major American city has published an economic study that says a football stadium is good for us, and a bunch of economists have said, no, it's not. The city is Washington, D.C. The stadium is RFK Stadium, and reporting on it is Sam Fortier of the Washington Post. Sam, this is both not a news story, but a news story. What's the new part of it here specific to D.C. this time around?
Yeah, I mean, the new part is basically that D.C. is saying that, it's good. It's good for us. It would be good at RFK. And so it's just like, the national trend has decided to visit D.C. And I think that, Craig, it's important, I think, to this discussion to say that this is going to be happening a lot more. It's happened in some cities, Kansas City among them, Oklahoma City, other places. But it's going to happen a lot more because there's a sports stadium boom coming. A lot of these stadiums were made, including FedEx/Commanders Field in the late 90s. And so it's unique now because it's our backyard. It's where we live. And so we're going to have to grapple with the decision that, Kansas City voted to not spend public subsidies on the stadium. And then Oklahoma City did by an overwhelming margin to give the Thunder a new arena or to upgrade the arena. So, I mean, this is just a discussion that we're having now because it affects us.
For sure. And the politics of this are all local everywhere. I think a city like Oklahoma City is like, this is all we got. Like, yeah, we'll give you the money because they're grateful to have a team. And a city like Kansas City is a little bit more like, I dare you to leave after, what the Chiefs have been and kind of the place that they have in that city. One of the things I found interesting, though, about the reporting, Sam, and the reporting that you guys did on the report that came out is there's a lot of data in the new D.C. report that reflects a positive impact of Nationals Park. And Mayor Bowser and her office love to cite that success. When you talk to the economists, though, who are reading that, I know there's obviously differences between a football stadium and a baseball stadium, but do they actually agree that Nats Park, at least on a baseline level, has been the success that the city claims it is?
Wow, that's a great question because J.C. Bradbury, who you've talked to, I believe, as well,
yep. Mm-hmm.
The economist from Kennesaw State, who's probably like the nation's leading expert on these sort of things. I asked him, I said, hey, man, like, I get that all the studies say that these things are not necessarily that good for cities. But, I mean, I've been to Navy Yard. Like, he used to live in this area. Like, he's been to Navy Yard. It's hard for me to think that someone could argue that Nationals Park hasn't helped revitalize Navy Yard. And JC said, I'm about to do just that. And he basically told me, and I don't think this actually ended up making the story, but he basically said, like, you have to focus on what isn't easy to see. Because when you go to Navy Yard, yes, Nationals Park, it looks like it's created all these businesses, all these people are around. It's great. And he's like, it's great what's happened for that area. But when you think about the economic impact, when you think about, okay, how did DC pay for the stadium, the construction bonds that they issued to build Nationals Park, most of it was through a tax on individuals/businesses that make more than $5 million a year. And he was like, you could have done that. You could have instituted that same tax, which is called the ballpark fee, for roads or schools or libraries or literally anything else that you'd want. So saying that Nationals Park is paying for itself, it's creating all this revenue, like the area has certainly been revitalized, but he argues it's shifting money that would have been spent elsewhere, and that the way they're paying for it is on a tax that has actually nothing to do with Nationals Park at all.
That's so interesting because I feel like that's a bit of a semantics argument. Not that, I'm looking to argue with J.C. Bradbury via you here on the radio, but like they got to play baseball somewhere, and they did choose that this was the thing, and it actually did pay. Like it's also kind of brings in the next thing I think is an interesting thing specific to our area, Sam, which is like if Nationals wanted to play in Virginia or play in Maryland, like that money doesn't go to the District of Columbia. So they're going to play baseball somewhere, and the district did the thing that made it in the district. And if it has paid for itself, even if they could have done that with something else, they got the baseball team, and there's some kind of value that comes with that. The football team, same thing. They're trying to lure it out of Maryland. How different is DC because of this if you will, state area compared to, if you're where he is down in Atlanta, they just move it from one side of Atlanta to the other when they build the new Braves Stadium.
Yeah, JC is not sympathetic to that argument because I think that, like our region is unique, but at the same time, I think that like a great example is if you look at the study that DC did, about RFK, one of the criticisms that The Economist had is they made no effort to delineate between, where those jobs would come from, where would those workers live, where would they pay those taxes, really like who is reaping the economic benefit from having these jobs. Are they going to be full-time? Are they going to be temporary? Like it's a very complicated issue. And JC kind of sees it as just shifting money around that would be spent in the district anyway. So like, if now that Nationals Park is here, that just is going to take away from the theater or the whatever, it's the money. People have fixed budgets. They're going to spend a certain amount of money on certain things. And so if you go to a baseball game, you might not go to something else. And like, that's the argument that economists have. It's not generating a ton of new income. It's mostly just shifting things around.
Right. I've heard him make that argument before. I feel like there's some, I'd love to hear more specific numbers for an area like DC though, because if I live in Virginia and I could go to my movie theater in Virginia or a baseball game in DC, now we're talking about different numbers versus moving the money around in the same city. But I'm sure that's also marginal compared to the millions and millions of dollars of construction costs and all that kind of stuff.
I was just about to say, we are on a sports radio show, and I don't know how deep you want to get into this, but like, as someone who has gone to the district's CFO website and read the CFO's quarterly report, like the amount that the city makes off spending at Nationals Park is a very small percentage of the ballpark revenue fund compared to the ballpark fee, which is that $5 million, the tax on the $5 million and up people that we're talking about. So like, like they are making some money on the stadium, but like the real money is coming from the tax, which he would argue has nothing to do with baseball at all.
Got it. That's great info. And that's why you're you and you do the reporting and I sit here and host a radio show.
And I also think I want to be clear to people, like when we talk about these sports subsidy conversations, Nate Jensen at the University of Texas is like one of the nation's leading experts in public subsidies. And so obviously, he talks a lot about sports stadiums as well, because it's one of the most hotly debated use of subsidies. You're not getting this, I think, level of engagement on some other aspects. But the thing that he said is it's important to remember that even though almost every academic study finds that stadiums are losing propositions for cities, this isn't to say that cities shouldn't invest in teams, only that they are a fiscal cost. And like, so I don't have an opinion on where the Commanders should go. I don't have an opinion on how much money they should spend. But I do think that the stadium is an affront to the study, which is not a real study, is an affront to the taxpayer because it's not being honest about what the cost is. Like, right. I'm not saying whether or not you should spend that money because like that's for citizens and their public elected officials to decide. But like, tell me what it's going to cost.
No, 100%. I had that conversation with JC, and I also had it with Andy Zimbalist, who's kind of the 1B or 1A, whatever order. I don't want to make either JC or Andy Zimbalist upset in ordering them, but like those are the two probably foremost experts on it. And I was like, well, if I look at it as entertainment and accept the fact that entertainment costs money and we're just kind of subsidizing / socializing the cost of said entertainment, can I argue that that's worth it? And he's like, yeah, absolutely. But to your point, I think that's a great point that this report doesn't actually tell us what the cost is. And that itself is a problem, as is the other thing I wanted to ask you about in your reporting, Sam,
is Sam Fortier is our guest, Commanders beat reporter for the Washington Post, talking about a report that he and a colleague of his at the Post did on the city's report they released into the potential funding of RFK, or how much the cost of RFK. And the funding part, they actually didn't release that half of the report. Did I read that right? Why not? And why would a city perhaps hide that half of it?
Yeah, you're talking about my colleague Michael Bryce Sadler, who has done a lot of great work and covers city politics as well, and I always love teaming up with him. But yeah, I mean, a second report how to finance a stadium isn't going to be published, and they don't want to release that analysis. And so I have my own theories, but I will let you draw your own conclusions about why a city wouldn't want to release something like that.
What's like? I know this is a stupid question, Sam, but like, these are public officials. Keyword being public. How do you commission something like this, which, by the way, cost almost $400,000 and not release it? Like, how is that not a part of the actual approval of the commissioning of the report in the first place, that you actually have to release the findings?
I think that there are. I mean, it's obviously this is not the same, but like, you and I have talked about a lot of investigations and reports related to this team over the years, and some have not been released. And I mean, you always have to ask, like, who is benefiting from this information not being released to the public, and like, why would they want to do that? I think that your question probably is rhetorical ultimately, because the people in power don't want to release those for obvious reasons. But it's certainly frustrating. I totally get where you're coming from.
Yeah, it's very silly. They're public officials. They work for us. Then give your bosses the information. We're your bosses, and that's why you vote, or something like that. Sam Fortier is with us here on the Hoffman Show. Anything else of note from this that you think the audience should really be attuned to before we switch to the football of it all the last couple of days?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, like, this study found what they wanted to find. There was nothing surprising about this, but it is a good opportunity to start to have that discussion, because, you know, a couple colleagues from the data department and I, from the polling department, did a story a couple weeks ago about basically that the DMV obviously wants the next stadium to be at RFK, but a surprising number of people, it was 47 to 46%, actually are interested in paying, you know, to use public funds for that stadium. And so to me, we didn't learn anything from this study about how much it would cost. And the district can do it a bunch of different ways, right? Like tax abatements or preparing the land. It's rather than just a direct cash subsidy. But to me, like, it seems like the public is ready for a conversation about, we are willing to socialize this cost. What is the price tag? Like, what are we willing to do? And so obviously there's a lot of hurdles before RFK would be a realistic option. It's got to pass the Senate, which it's held up right now. It would then have to, you know, go to the council, and the DC, after the president signs it, the DC council, you know, is definitely going to have opposition to this. So we're a long way away, but I think that, like, this study is bringing to the forefront, to me, the question of, okay, like, how much is this going to cost if they're going to do it, and is the public going to be willing to bear it?
Yeah, totally. There's a long way to go, and the clock is ticking, by the way, because eventually they actually need to build the thing. And you know, at this point, they're going to be in Commanders Field in Landover for beyond what the expiration date there is. They're going to have to extend that no matter what. But we'll see ultimately where the long-term plan is. I'm
actually going to interject there and remind people that it is not a lease. There is no lease in Landover. It doesn't expire. They have a contractual agreement to play there through at least 2027, but they can stay as long as they want. They own the land. Like, it's not a lease.
Right. No, that's a good clarification point. And that's what I meant. The expiration of their contractual obligation to be there. They have to play there through, what is it, 27? So they could start the 28 season there. I think it's like a stupid date, though. It's like September 14th or something, where if they have a new stadium that year, they're going to have to open on the road so that the new stadium can be opened week 2, because that's the way the calendar is going to fall. But also, it's probably not going to matter, because there's basically, at this point in 2024, zero chance that there's a new stadium anywhere by then. So That could have been a fun fact for schedule release that year, and they've even ruined that for us. Sam 48, Washington Post, with us here on the Hoffman Show. All right, to the football. You've covered obviously the Rivera era here. Before that, you've covered a couple of different teams, both as a national reporter and as a local reporter out in LA. Like, how different was this camp for you in the way that Quinn and Cliff and everybody ran it compared to the other springs that you've seen in your football covering career?
Ooh, that's a good question because, to be honest, man, like, I think that last year with Eric Bieniemy's energy and voice and, like, just harping on the details, that was different. It was a little bit of a shock to the system because that's not how Ron's teams had been. It's not how Scott Turner was. But, like, this one, I would say, you know, they do that drill before practice starts where they go over the bags, and they have a number 2 overall pick quarterback who I think has brought a lot of enthusiasm to the team and the franchise. And obviously it's you know, new in terms of Josh Harris wasn't the owner at this time last year. But how it looked, I think was pretty standard. You know, I think the things that they were doing were pretty standard. And to me, call me jaded from the years I've been doing this, but like Terry catching a nice pass that shows like some timing and rapport with Jaden is exciting, but like waking up in week 1, man, like I've seen I've gotten way too optimistic about too many of these teams to like buy into the hype in the preseason too much.
No, I think that's fair. I think I'd rather have a good June than a bad June, but a good June doesn't mean anything. I would say that the one big difference that I would draw between Bieniemy last year and the whole staff this year is, in hindsight, I think Bieniemy was yelling at everybody because nobody knew what they were doing, and that's bad. And that showed up during the season. It did feel like a very clean camp. And Quinn actually said something yesterday that I appreciated. He was actually, it's funny because he was sharing a compliment that someone had given to essentially him. But it's something that I noticed and had thought about previously, which is this staff, watching them work together, you never know that they didn't work together before. That Cliff and DQ and Joe Witt and these guys are all new to each other. There was a cohesion that I think ultimately is a good thing. Again, will it lead to wins? I don't know. They got to have talent, and the talent has to execute. That's all stuff for the fall. But were you surprised at all at kind of how smooth camp ran this year, considering literally everything was new?
I hate to say it, man, but I would say no. I mean, one thing I will say to Dan Quinn, I would say Dan Quinn was probably more hands-on and aggressive than Ron Rivera was. I remember, you know, he got on receiver Bryson Tremaine for not hustling to the line on a certain play. Yesterday, he was yelling at everybody to stay on their feet because too many guys he thought were landing on the ground, which obviously increases injury risk. So Dan Quinn was a little more hands-on. The cohesion, I mean, yeah, like I think, you know, the practices were efficient and crisp, but I don't think I saw that as much as maybe people who in the building saw it, or it sounds like you did.
Yeah, I would have expected there to be some kind of point in camp where it's like, oh, no, we're not doing that. And everything was pretty smooth all along. And that's ultimately good, especially yesterday because it was hot as hell out. And I'm happy that they cut 30 minutes off of practice because I'm selfish. Last thing on the way out. You ready for the Sports Talk Radio money soundbite question?
Wow, I'm so bad at giving money sound bites, but try me.
It's not. I mean, it's fine. Are you surprised that Dan Quinn has not named Jaden Daniels the starting quarterback, considering he was the quarterback who took all of the 1 reps for the entirety of the mandatory minicamp?
No, I'm not surprised at all because like this is the way coaches do things, man. Is like they're gonna do it on their timeline and they want to, you know, communicate to their guys what they want to communicate. And even though I think everybody knows how it's going to end up, like, I'm sure Dan wants Jaden to go into the summer thinking he's not guaranteed the job. And so he works a little bit harder. I don't think that, like, you need to motivate Daniels in that way. It sounds like he's mature and he's going to handle his business on his own. But if you have that carrot, why give it up for nothing? You know,
I'm with you. Like, it's fun, and you and I are similar on this. And there are other people that you know on the beat though that are just, I won't say furious, but they are fantastically annoyed by this.
I just think like we're wasting time thinking about it. Honestly, hopefully that's a good radio nugget for you or a poll nugget. But I think we're wasting time thinking about it because it's like everybody knows where it's going to go,
Right.
and it's just how's he going to play.
Right. This is a time that we're allowed to put our own thinking caps on and our own analysis caps on and go, hey, he took every 1 rep of the entire mandatory minicamp. Even though they're not going to do anything, like, we know where this is headed. But I will say I think it's not insignificant the fact that it is this inevitable by the end of the spring compared to where we would expect, I think, a lot of rookies to be. But also Mariota was somehow even worse than I anticipated, so that's also playing into the factor. Sam Fortier, you can read all his work on both the football and the stadium stuff at WashingtonPost.com/sports. Sam, always appreciate it, sir. Have a great weekend and enjoy the pickleball.
I am going to the Major League Pickleball event in DC right now. I'm about to hop out of the Uber, so I'm pretty pumped. I will see you later, Craig.
Sounds good. See you, buddy.
What's up, kiddos? It's your boy Clinton Yates from ESPN. It's the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. Tell your mama I said what's up.
It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980, always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980, where you see a dancing super producer, Anthony Haney. His ice on his wrist, right in the camera. You got that going for you?
The Apple Watch?
No, you got a bracelet on too?
Oh, yeah, a little bracelet. Little David Yerman.
Is it a little David Yerman?
Yeah.
I'll tell you my David Yerman jewelry story off air.
Okay.
Because I'm sure it's a fine company. Customer service is great. I'll put it that way. My need for continual customer service, different story. Anyway, the point is that it's 5:30 on a Friday. We're halfway through our Friday. Hopefully you're all the way done with yours, headed home to a fun weekend. We still got 90 minutes of radio to go. We're going to start by going around the NFL. There's a couple of stories floating out there that are worth discussion, including the fact that Trevor Lawrence can afford a lot of jewelry of all different prices and varieties. The Jaguars quarterback signs a mega extension, $200 million guaranteed, $275 overall, big number after big number that you want to break it down, however you want to do it. Ultimately, there seems to be, I don't want to say a lot of confusion, Anthony, on Lawrence getting this, but certainly there's some people batting their eyes like, wow, Trevor Lawrence got an extension. And I'm kind of like, yeah, duh, Trevor Lawrence got an extension. He's young, good, and this is what quarterbacks cost. If you're the Jags, would you rather be trying something else or continuing to work with one of the most talented guys to come out recently? And I don't know. I feel like you're in the category of kind of batting your eyes at this. So talk to me here.
I am in that category, and it's more so because I feel as though they surrounded him with a great offensive, staff last year. You had Calvin Ridley, you had Christian Kirk, you had Evan Ingram having a breakout season. We know what his connection with, what's his running back?
Travis Etienne.
Going back to his Clemson days. So he had a lot of talent there, and I feel like they were winning games last year because of their defense. So it's sort of kind of like in spite of him, as opposed to like him being the reason.
Sure.
And I feel like a lot of the quarterbacks that are getting paid right now, you talk about the Dak Prescott, you talk about the Kirk Cousins, they're winning because of those guys.
I think that is fair last year, but Trevor Lawrence is still pretty young, and he's super talented. And I think, obviously, that staff that just paid him knows him better than anyone else. Maybe they're bad negotiators. Maybe they could have gotten him in a lower number, but that's his agent is just going to go no. And I think you kind of what you're doing if you're Jacksonville is exactly the opposite of what Dallas is doing. For Dallas, the price continues to go up. Trevor Lawrence signs, Dak just became more expensive. Like the more guys that sign that Dak can be like, I'm on that dude's level, like the more the Cowboys are going to have to pay him. And they only sign for more money as the cap goes up and as time goes on because the last guy got paid and you got to be on top of that guy and on it goes. If you're Jacksonville, you can either pay Lawrence this now, which is the going rate for a veteran quarterback, especially a young veteran who's talented, or you can wait till after the season and he might be awesome and then he's going to cost you even more money. What happens if Trevor Lawrence, this is the year that it clicks for him? Now he's going to ask for more than what Burrow got because it's another year and he's like, well, I played the whole season. Joe was hurt. Like I'm as good as he is, yada, yada. And that's a risk financially. So you might as well just pay it now. I also think that, sometimes it's really good to listen to smart people. I know that's stunning analysis, but I've mentioned this a couple times. Like a month and a half ago, the Athletic Football Show did a series of podcasts where they ranked a bunch of different things, including quarterbacks. And Lawrence is still like a top 7 guy in the league in terms of you bet on him for the next 3 years from a lot of people who study this at a really, really intensely high level. And that was interesting to me. It was also interesting to me that like Dak was a lot higher than you'd expect. Like if you forget their current situation with their team, but if you just look at what they do, what they bring to the table, and you were to redraft the league, what order do the quarterbacks go? Like there's not 10 guys that go ahead of Trevor Lawrence. There's just not because of the arm strength, the physical build, the mobility, like the processing. He still has to get better. There's no doubt.
but his high end is so high, and he has done enough that you still bet on him. It's the same reason that you bet on Justin Herbert. Like, you just look at the traits and you look at what he has done, and it's really easy to look at what he hasn't done because what he has done so impressive. You're like, oh, but I want more. And it's like, yeah, but he's still done more than almost everybody else. And I think that's the thing with Lawrence and Herbert, and even a guy like Dak to an extent, that gets underrated at times.
Yeah, I definitely think he was being paid for like his upside again, like everything you just mentioned. The fact, he has the size, he is 6'5", 6'6", he has a strong arm. Those are things, you don't get with every quarterback. But I'm looking at the fact that, that he hasn't, won more than 40% of his games over the last 3 years, or that he's led the league in turnovers over the last 3 years. Is that kind of stuff that I'm more so looking at. So I'm not saying like, and I think you said like maybe, his agent was a very good contract negotiator. I just think they maybe could have got him at like a cheaper price, and maybe I'm wrong.
We'll have to see the structure of the deal, right?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not that bad. Maybe they can get out after a certain number of years.
Yeah.
Maybe they just got their butts. Trent Baalke is not exactly the world's greatest general manager, so maybe the Jags did get owned here. But I just generally think that if you think maybe he had a good spring, and they're like, yeah, he's got it now. This is year 5 for him? Year 4, year 5? And his first year is ruined by Urban Meyer. And now if they feel like he's finally caught up in like another year with Doug Peterson, and they got weapons and continuity, and they lost Ridley, but like they think they've got it, it's a gamble. It's essentially what it is, right? It's a gamble that you're going to wind up paying him less now than you would a year from now.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a bad gamble. Speaking of bad gambles, speaking of quarterbacks,
that guy, that man, that bad man,
Aaron Rodgers has got to be one of the biggest frauds in sports. And I'm not a hot take, like call people frauds kind of guy. But for a dude who spent all last season, after he got hurt, which is no fault of his own, chirping about the Jets and how all that stuff that's not about winning better not be in the building. People better be focused. Like, we're not professional. To skip mandatory minicamp, to be somewhere, some unidentified place because you don't want to be near football. And it's an unexcused absence. It's such chicken bleep. Like, he's just a gigantic hypocrite. It's one set of rules for him and another for everybody else. And that's exactly who he's always been. He is someone, and like eventually you just look at certain people and you're like, what do people close to them think? And he's got some teammates that really like him, and even guys that I have a lot of respect for, that have a lot of respect for Rodgers. But at some point, like if your whole family hates you, if you've alienated a lot of people, is everybody else wrong? Is everybody, because he knows how to play it up for the cameras. Like, I used to love listening to Rodgers on the Le Batard show. He was interesting, he was funny, but there was still like a smugness, but there was something to it that was endearing. But eventually it just it jumped the shark. It just crossed a Rubicon where you're like, and then obviously look, I'd be lying to you if I didn't say some of my thought was infected by his politics. And it's just a reality of the situation that, like, if you come out and say some of the stuff that's like, if you're that deep in the conspiracy theories, yeah, I'm gonna notice. And I realize there's some people listening right now that are like, what conspiracy theories? He's right. And I don't know what to tell you. But I think for most people listening who look at some of the stuff that Rodgers believes to be true when he did his own research, you look at the dude and you're like, what? What planet are you on? And some of the stuff he said, some of the stuff that's been harmful to people that he said, like, he's just a weird dude. But if you even take all of that aside, if you try to just take it on the face value,
an NFL starting quarterback who spends a year chewing out his teammates and his organizations for being unprofessional, undedicated, unmotivated, and about things that aren't about winning. Pulling this stunt is so amateur hour, so hypocritical, so unprofessional. And if the Jets weren't totally screwed without him and so desperate, they'd probably cut him. But they're not going to, because they have long bought into the Aaron Rodgers experiment, and they're just willing to live with it. And there is no amount of embarrassment or shame that he can bring them to make them change their mind, which is sad, pathetic, and perfectly New York Jets.
Craig, I think you hit the nail on the head when you called him a fraud. This guy, he is fraudulent, man. This is fraudulent behavior. And it's even more like disheartening when there's a guy, Robert Saleh, he's coming out to even defend this guy. I know Robert wants to probably hold him accountable.
Like, he can show up, or he can quit, and we'll save, hey, Woody Johnson, I'm going to save you $40 million. Because this dude's going to walk away because he's so proud of whatever it is that he's proud of. Like, no. This is the difference between, like, the old Commanders and the new Commanders, right? Something like this would never fly with Adam Peters and Dan Quinn or Josh Harris. Josh Harris would put his foot down and go, nah, we're not doing this. The team is more important. The culture is more important. The standard is the standard. You either get there or you get out. It doesn't matter who you are. And by the way, we're not bringing you in if we don't believe you uphold that. And if you trick us and you get in and then you don't, we'll throw you out. Because in the long term, the standard is what's going to win. And the respect of everyone in the locker room and everyone in the organization and around the league is more important than any single player, even as great of a football player as Aaron Rodgers is. And instead, what you have in New York is the same thing you used to have in Washington, which is a bunch of star hunting cowards who think the most important thing is to have the star quarterback around because he was great on Hard Knocks last year, and everyone was like, this guy's fun. And he sells you tickets, and he's going to help you win some games. But I honestly also don't think you can win with a guy like this. Aaron Rodgers is so talented that one Super Bowl on his resume is underachieving. That's how good of a football player I think Aaron Rodgers is. I know that sounds like a shot. That's a compliment. Aaron Rodgers is that good. But I actually do wonder if you were to inject some truth serum into some former Green Bay teammates, if him being this difficult to deal with day in and day out is part of the reason why, and this stubborn and this in his own whatever is part of the reason why they only got one, despite the fact that he was the best quarterback in the league from a talent standpoint, while Peyton Manning and Tom Brady were there for the better part of a decade. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. And when we get back, is the Commanders' offensive line actually not as bad as you think? Not me saying that. An ESPN expert chimes in next.
More from Commanders minicamp coming up at 6 p.m. We'll preview Mystic Sky in the 6 o'clock hour as well. It's the Hoffman Show here on the Team 980. Always live as well on the free Odyssey app, taking you home on this Friday. We're also live on YouTube at the Team 980. So, Anthony, Mike Clay from ESPN.com put out his rankings earlier in the week of units. He did player rankings for fantasy purposes. Like, they're basically his projections for the season. And I think that Mike Clay has done an excellent job, a better job than most of them. Drum roll, please. My desk here is not as sturdy as it needs to be for a really quality drum roll, so I'm sorry for the soft drum roll. Anyway, he has them ranked 21st, which I think is much, much closer to the reality of where they are than some of Mike's ESPN colleagues and other national pundits who have them dead last, because I just don't think they watched the Commanders that much last year to understand the problems that they had were far more than personnel. They were schematic and coaching. They were play calling. They were quarterback driven. And in all of those areas, personnel included, they're just better in 2024. Not good, because 21st is still in the bottom third of the league. But it's clearly, I guess technically it's not the bottom third. It's as close as you can get. It's the very last team in the middle third. They're not great. No one is trying to tell you that they're top half of the league. But Tyler Biotish is a major upgrade at center. Snapped and played in nearly 100 NFL games. He's got experience. That center communication is going to be so much better. Cosme's legitimately one of the best guards in the league at right guard. Wiley is not going to be nearly as exposed this year. Left tackle is a serious question, and that's legit. But even the worst case scenario, like, do we agree that the worst case scenario is Cornelius Lucas? Because he's kind of the fallback, right? Like, if Brandon Coleman's better or Trent Scott's better, then that would be, better. Cornelius Lucas is a swing tackle. He's got some limitations, but he's fine. And then left guard, Nick Allegretti's like a league average kind of player. Not anything great, not spectacular, not terrible. So they've upgraded at left guard. They probably downgraded slightly at left tackle. Leno, even though he had his moments last year, was bad. But the biggest difference is Eric Bieniemy's not hanging that offensive line out to dry every snap. And Cliff Kingsbury's going to give them a lot better chances to not rack up the kind of pressures and sack numbers they did. And Jaden Daniels, I think, is going to be better at avoiding sacks and pressures by getting the ball out quickly and being more decisive than Sam Howell was. So I think 21st feels much more correct. And then we'll see if they can elevate from there. There's a chance that they wind up being worse. But this idea that just because their production was trash last year, that they're actually the worst in the league, I think is, frankly, lazy analysis in a space that's really hard to do analysis. It takes a lot of tape study and a lot of context to cover 32 teams well. But at the end of the day, if you're going to do rankings like this, don't be lazy with them. And I think 21st is a lot better than a lot of credit that they've been given.
And I would probably say, fans, myself included initially anyway, just like not knowing what, our starting lineup in the fall is going to be, like that can always, create some concern. And like sometimes we, just start to panic and, over exaggerate what's really actually there in front of us without actually giving it time and, weighing the options. So, based off last year, we weren't good, and we have a rookie quarterback. We want to do everything in our power to, protect him and protect our investment. And I'm not going to say we didn't make these crazy investments in the offensive line, but we did make some moves. And I think we just got to be patient and allow, our coaches to, put our players in the best position to be, successful. And we just shouldn't panic, to be honest. Because that's, I think, where we were at the, start of free agency and the draft.
And look, I get it. Last year, people were like, this line's not good enough. And then, there were people, and myself included, that were like, look, Bieniemy will take care of it. He knows. Whoops. And, I guess now if you want to be like, oh, you're saying Cliff will take care of it and then he's not, why should I believe you this year? I got nothing for you. I can't guarantee anything other than the head coach, the guy doing quality control, is a lot better and a lot more involved and a lot more hands-on. And he's not going to let, like, I can't believe Rivera didn't step in last year and go, Eric, knock it off. Like, this is not the personnel we have. They are, like, Dan Quinn's entire philosophy is, what are players' superpowers? Figure out how to do that. What are their weaknesses? Avoid how to do that. And last year, Eric Bieniemy looked at an offensive line with Charles Leno, Chris Paul / Sadiq Charles, Nick freaking Gates, Sam Cosmi, and Andrew Wiley, and was like, I know what to do with these guys. Pass protect every single snap. No play action, no help, no moving the pocket, just straight drop back. Let's party. It worked for us in Kansas City with Mahomes, and it was a disaster. There's no way they do that this year. But I also get fans wanting to see it because I was stunned. If you told me this time last year that that's what was going to happen, I'd be like, there's no way Eric Bieniemy is so smart. He can't possibly do something that dumb. And then he did week after week after week. It's 21st for the Commanders' offensive line. Happy ranking season, everybody. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. Coming up next, one last little bit of minicamp take command for you. Logan and I discussing the defensive back situation and more on the Hoffman Show.
is the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We are always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. Take Command podcast, Logan Paulson and I do. We did it live yesterday after the Commanders wrapped up their minicamp, but in case you missed it, we'll give you a little snippet right now. You can listen to the rest of it this weekend on your time, on your schedule. That's the beauty of a podcast. It is on demand anytime, anywhere in your favorite podcast app or on YouTube, full episodes at the Team 980. This one, you'll click over to the live video tab on our page because this was, well, live. Talked about the quarterback stuff in the early part of the podcast, so if you wanted that, make sure you check out the pod. But continued with the rest of our takeaways from the Commanders' final minicamp. Logan, me, football, you, right now on the Hoffman Show.
All right, so the back end is kind of the last thing we'll talk about here, unless you have anything else, but we're also running out of position.
We got today's women's in sports, as well as the golf. So it's an extra 4 minutes. So, yeah.
But all the different personnel groups and all the things that they've been able to get done here in just a couple of weeks.
I think that's the thing. It's simple, but it's like there's an illusion of complexity. It's like good offense too, right? It's like, hey man, we looks like we're in man, but we're rolling to Tampa 2. Everyone runs Tampa 2, but we got to this disguise. We got from this disguise to this coverage in a very specific way, which is great to see. You know, like that's something that gets you excited, right? But again, like it's not all of the stuff they've done. And the thing that makes the coverage work and be able to play those relatively straightforward coverages is the pressure packages. And what do those pressure packages look like? And that's, again, what I keep going back to. But with the secondary, specifically, I think it's just been great because of it's just such a different vibe. You know what I mean? In terms of communication, in terms of energy, in terms of competitiveness, that I think is great. You know, like, for example, there was a call that the offense is in a 3-by-1, 3 receivers to the left, 1 receiver to the right, backs offset to the right, and Jeremy Chin's working through a communication call with Forbes. And it's like, oh, we're going to, what I'm going to call is lock. Oh, we can't lock this. Oh, but we can lock it. Let's lock it. And Forbes it's like he's hanging on every word that Chin is saying. And eventually they get the lock, and it was late in the down, but they got it. They were on the same page. They were able to get it covered up on the backside. And that is cool to see because I remember going to practices 100 times last year and not seeing that level of communication, that level of emotion with regards to the communication. And I think it's just going to be like that's the thing that I think elevates this group is can you communicate like that with all of those different people at the same time? So that's why, you know, Kyle brought this up on his podcast. They've got the second string linebackers in with the first team secondary. I think it's just, again, working the drill in terms of communication. Those guys are going to have to play for you at some point this year, and let's get that lined up. So, and the other thing about the personnel groupings is it allows you the best opportunity to match what the offense is presenting every single time. And I think that's also cool. We got these guys that are, you know, kind of without a position in terms of like how you would traditionally classify them. Your Dominique Hamptons, your Tyler Owens, these big, long, rangy guys, but they understand how to use those pieces here. And that's also really cool. Jeremy Chin's another guy that fits in that same mold. So really, really cool. Different personnels, different levels of disguise, different levels of communication. And it just, again, much like the offensive production today with Cliff Kingsbury was so high, that stuff is good foundational stuff. And I just want to see the house that they put on top of it to make them a great defense.
In my, is this 8 or 9 years doing this? I don't know, whatever. Since 2015, you can do the math. Being out here, or maybe you can't do the math. I can't. I have never seen / heard a defense talk like this. It is just a totally different. Now I've covered some really bad defenses, but also covered some decent ones. Well, and I've just never seen a defense that communicates like this. And I think obviously it goes to the standard that they've set. Is like, this is how we do it. There is not an alternative. There is no other way. And, you know, it's certainly some of the newer guys are at the center of that. But I also think you see the Quan Martins. You see some of the guys, Defo, you know, who have been here that certainly are hanging on the words of some of these veteran guys and some of these guys that are kind of setting this new standard, but are definitely also participating in it.
Yeah. No, I think that's right. And, you know, like when you talk to Smoot, for example, like he played with Greg Williams, and those were, you know, say what you want about Greg Williams, you know, off the field or whatever, but as a coach, great. And those defenses, according to Fred, communicated in the same way, right? because as a defense, you are tasked with this impossible job of matching everything the offense can do from different numbers of receivers and different personnel sets. And so the only way you can do that, in my opinion, is to communicate and make sure that we're seeing it the same way and make sure that we're matching this the same way. We've ID'd this the same way. And I can't rely on, how many defensive backs are there? There's seven defensive backs in some looks, like linebackers included in that, to see every offensive formation the same way. So one way to kind of mitigate that is be like, hey, Craig, this is how I see it. And I'm the boss. So you're going to see it the way I see it, and we're going to be on the same page.
Yeah.
And as long as we're on the same page, we can mitigate a lot of mistakes. Like how many times last year, as an example, not to pick on last year's defense or last year's coaching staff, but they just weren't on the same page. Guys were, they had inside help or they thought they had inside help when they didn't have inside help. Like I think back to the Bears game where you get St. Juice trying to undercut a dig when he has no help over the top. That's so easily managed by saying, hey, Juice, I got you here. I've got the dig. Right. And just reminding him. And it's like, oh, yeah, great. You know what I'm saying? And back to work. And that happens on the offensive line. That happens with the tight ends, the fullbacks. And just that little extra communication ensures there's no errors. And I think it's great that you've pointed that out because, like, when I talk to any London, Smoot, any defensive player that I ever played with, the communication, it's like we're not communicating the way we need to communicate. That ever since I've been covering the team. And so here it's kind of feels like the opposite, but I feel like this is the standard of defensive communication.
For sure. And I think to that, like, I'm the boss, I'm in charge. That's actually how the podcast runs. Logan's the boss, and I just do whatever Logan says.
You know you're the boss.
Yeah, well, we don't let people know that. But I talked to Defo after practice yesterday, and I asked him about Bobby, and I was like, off the field first, what do you see? He's like, the routine, all the stuff you'd expect. I was like, on the field, like, what does he bring? And he's just like, he'll literally be like, watch out for this. Right. And just like the ability to read, react, but also recognize what's happening and the options that could be coming at you and to alert guys to that. It's not necessarily directly saying I'm the boss and this is how I see it. It's making sure that you have the same thoughts I do because I'm verbalizing them and putting them out there.
And I remember playing when I was a rookie, London Fletcher would do the same thing. He'd be like, hey, watch power, watch whatever. And it wasn't always right, but you could tell it got people, oh yeah, this is that formation, right? This is the formation where they do that out of. So let me kind of shift my alignment a little bit. And more often than not, he was right, or at least he was able to help the guys get in a position where they could be right. And I think just having someone not only at the first level, but Chin talks a ton, man. Yeah. He's talking his face off, and him and Luvu, and just getting that extra little bit of, is so important because I've coached defensive guys like in my personal training business, and one of the things that's like when you're watching film, it's like, oh, this formation, they're 60% this type of run, right? And especially if this motion and with this guy with this guard tail, we're at 80%, right? And if I'm in the flow of the game and I'm trying to think about the call and where I align, it's just nice for someone to be like, hey man, remember we got tight zone out of this. And you're like, oh yeah, I can squeeze my alignment down a little bit because of this alignment. It's such a valuable piece. It's the same thing like when I was playing with Matt Ryan, and he'd be like, hey, Logan, watch 0 here. And you're like, oh, it is 0. Like, right, I missed it because I was thinking about a million other things just to kind of focus up and be like, I got to do this in this protection or run this type of route or tell this receiver, I got to pick for this receiver. Like, it's just nice to have someone else like look out for you and be like, hey man, remember this? Yeah. Oh yeah, right, good, let's go get it. You know what I'm saying?
No, 100%. And that communication and being on the same page prevents a lot of bad stuff from happening on defense. And that is excellent. And hopefully carries over to the regular season. And hopefully, it's not just relying on Bobby Wagner too. I mean, hopefully that's
you said this too though. Like you've seen other guys start talking. Right. I like today Forbes in that look. He looked at Chin and it wasn't like I'm waiting. It was like, what do we got? It was like I'm communicating with you for you to tell me.
What I was going to say is obviously Bobby's going to be the center of that, both positionally as the middle linebacker and because he's Bobby freaking Wagner. But the thing about, as you know better than me in football is you spend so much time in the meetings, right? And so if he's there in the meetings and he's able to be like, hey, this is what I'm looking at here, then you get other guys starting to think like that. And that's how you change.
It's not all on him.
The culture, right, of a team and kind of how a guy's career can change trajectory because of his interaction with a coach or a player, because it changes your process and how you think differently. And that's really valuable. And that seems to have already started to happen for sure. And, obviously they do have Bobby Wagner on the field, which is great, but you're seeing, and I'm sure Chim was like this in Carolina too, just a super smart guy, but you have those multiples. But it's also, I'll say this real quick to wrap up the kind of this thought is that's the kind of thing that a guy like Adam Peters is looking for. Like it's a chicken and egg thing, right? It's like, yeah, they're doing this because DQ and the staff preach it and they make sure that they emphasize it. And it's really important.
Such a great
but
point.
They also are bringing in guys that play that way and think that way and lead that way in the first place.
It's like when people say, oh, we want tough physical football players, smart. You don't make tough physical smart football players. Like you can help them along the way, but you need to find people that have that in them, that are of that same ilk, of same description. And I think that's what, as a talent evaluator, as I've done the draft stuff each and every year and got used to it, it's like, I like this guy, player X.
Yeah.
But he doesn't fit this cultural identity. Like he's not going to tackle the way they want. He's not going to fit the run the way they want. He's not going to be physical with the press the way they want because that's not who he is. He's a good player, but he doesn't fit this. And I think that's one thing when I was in San Fran and talking with people about Adam, just generally, is they said he did such a great job of being like, this is what the coach wants to be. Let's make sure everyone I'm giving him fits that. You know what I'm saying? It's like, McCaffrey, for example, I'm sure a lot of people had varying different grades on him, but he's tough, he's smart, he's physical, and he's going to work his face off. And now you put a piece in here with a guy like Zach Ertz, and now you've got two people. And now maybe one of the young guys, Bryson Tremaine, sees how hard McCaffrey works and says, oh, I can do that because I'm a tough, physical, smart guy, but I can take it to the next level. And then all of a sudden you've got 3 or 4 guys that operate in the same way because they are built the right way, if that makes sense. I think that's so important. Whenever you're doing your pre-draft stuff, your mock draft stuff at home, it's not about how good you think the guy is. It's like, do they fit the cultural identity of your organization? And like you said, Adam's done a great job of finding free agents and draft picks that fit that.
I want the guy at pick 100 who goes to pick number 2 and says, I hear you're showing up early. What time?
Yes. Right.
5:45. And then he just starts showing up. Because apparently that's what went down. Like, he didn't say, hey, can I come?
Yeah.
Luke was like, what time do you show up? And Jaden's like 5:45. He's like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And he's just here.
Well, what's crazy is like, they've done all these studies about the psychology of, building leadership. And it's not necessarily the first guy that does it. It's the second guy that does it.
Yeah.
Because it encourages other people to be like, oh, well, shoot, like that's cool to do. I'm going to do that. And then all of a sudden that 2 becomes 4 and that 4 becomes 8.
Yeah.
And you've got a big chunk of the team out here learning.
I got a funny analogy for you. Back in high school when I was DJing weddings.
Love it. The dance thing.
Do you even know that I DJed weddings?
I did not know that.
But we used to say that.
Were you good at it? Let's talk.
Pretty solid.
Do you still DJ? You still got a kit and stuff?
I do have a kit. I did the music for our wedding.
Did you?
Yeah. I recorded it before we went over
okay. I was going to say.
You can't bring your own DJ to Scotland. It's very expensive. We did bring our own photographers, but that was also expensive. We picked our spots. It's a wedding, man. Anyway, the point is, we would say, like, it takes 2 people to start the party and one person to end it.
Yes.
Because if we had 2 people out there, then it was kind of an open invitation for more people to go get on the dance floor. If one of them left, the other person was following, and now we got 0.
Yeah, right.
And that's literally what it is.
Yes, and I think that's so. Again, you get people of the right construction, and you get the stuff that you want. You get guys working together. You get guys communicating. You get guys staying to watch film. You get guys making each other better. And I think that's one of the reasons why this offseason in general has been so encouraging. Is the process has been correct. Now, is it going to lead to wins in year 1? I don't know, probably not, but like it does. It establishes
more wins than it would if it didn't have it.
But it establishes a foundation, and then you get a San Francisco, and then you get a Detroit. Like you do the hard things early and get the right people in here early, and then you get something really productive and good out of it. And I think that's the thing that you leave practice every day going, why am I so excited? I think that's one of the reasons why.
For sure. Anything else from either today specifically or the last couple weeks in general before we? We're not going anywhere for the summer. We're going to still do the podcast. But,
but there's no football stuff. Yeah. I mean, I think everyone probably wants to know about Brandon Coleman. I thought he had a better day today.
Oh, yeah.
Thought he was much more consistent about setting the line. You saw him use his length. There was a couple, 3 or 4 practices ago where he was oversetting and kind of missing with his punch. Today he was much more consistent. And those are the types of steps you want to see. I had an issue, made a correction, and now we're ready to go. And again, today was much more straight rush, like kind of 4 guys rushing the quarterback as opposed to the day when I was here before where it's like running games and stunts and ETs and we're really challenging you. But answer the test that's given. I think that's good. And
I will say yesterday when you weren't here, he was out moving a little bit.
He can run around a little bit.
ooh, buddy, is he athletic.
He's got some light feet, especially in the individual stuff. You just see him kind of glide around. And again, like, whether he's a guard or tackle, left tackle, right tackle, we'll see. But that athletic profile and the stuff you hear about him as a guy, as a worker, gives you hope that, he can become more than the sum of the parts as of right now. Kind of like how McCaffrey is this, he's this work in progress, but he works so hard, he's going to be better, right? You kind of hope Coleman's the same way, and it gives you a lot of confidence in that pick potentially moving forward.
No doubt. All right, so we if we got nothing else from practice, kind of means we're in rankings season. Oh, yeah. We'll have some other fun stuff coming as well. We do every year the divisional position rankings, which is really fun.
That is fun.
We have done that the past couple of years, so we'll definitely do that maybe as early as next week. We got a couple other guests we got to follow up on. But always fun stuff that comes out this time of year. A lot of great writers drop a lot of great feature pieces. So, like this was the time of year last year that Jordan dropped a feature piece, but she dropped the Play Caller series. So things like that we'll dive into for sure. Other than that, plenty of mailbags as well. So leave your comments
please.
On YouTube, at Team 980, at 1067 The Fan, at Craig Hoffman. You can send Logan messages on Instagram. You can tweet me. We've got plenty of ways. HoffmanShow.com. There's a contact page. Whatever tickles your fancy. We'll try to answer your mailbag questions. Until the next episode, which will be early next week. That's Logan Paulson. I'm Craig Hoffman. Happy minicamp is over season, everybody.
All right, that was from Take Command. If you missed the quarterback portion of it, it's available on demand for you. We had a couple of other thoughts in as well that you didn't hear in the full podcast, so you can check that out as you bop around this week. And, of course, if you have already listened to that and you're like, hey, thanks, maybe you didn't finish yet and we just helped you finish the podcast, there's probably some other parts of our show that you missed, or something with Chris Russell or Kevin Sheehan. All of our podcasts available for you. Just search your show in your favorite podcast app or the free Odyssey app, and it'll pop up right there for you. When we get back here on the Hoffman Show, weekend preview time, lots to discuss, including Mystics and Sky. Angel Reese back in town tonight. Can the Mystics make it 2 wins in a row? We'll discuss that and more. Plus, it's a big fight weekend. Anthony's all jacked up about that. Next, here on the Team 980. It's the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app, streaming live on YouTube at the Team 980 as well. It's time for our weekend preview, Anthony, brought to you by...
It's actually brought to you by nobody, Craig.
Okay, but it is available for sponsorship, yeah?
Yes.
So people should just give us a call or send us an email or something.
That.
Yeah.
Right there.
Just throwing it out there. Closed mouths don't get fed. Closed mouths don't get fed or sponsored. This segment could be yours as long as you meet whatever our sales team wants. I'm not in control. It's Friday at 6:30. Really not in control of much at this point. All right, weekend preview is taking a look at a fight this weekend, Anthony. Got a couple local things going on as well, but first, it's a fight weekend. You're our fight correspondent. Correspond, please.
Yes, it is a fight weekend, Craig. A lot of people have been, anticipating the return of Gervonta Tank Davis. He'll be taking on Frank Martin this weekend. They will be in Vegas. And it's really just, I think the excitement just around who Tank is has grown just because of what has transpired between Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and it's just this power, struggle between who's the best at that division. So I think all eyes are going to be here, but not only on that fight, but also the fight David Benavidez. He'll be taking on, he'll be debuting in the 175-pound weight class. And hopefully after he, beats the guy that he's facing this weekend, we'll finally get Canelo versus David Benavidez. I think that's the fight everybody is talking about, everybody's wanting. And sometimes boxing just has to give the fans what they want. And hopefully that fight will be it.
Give me your picks.
I will be taking Gervonta Tank Davis by knockout. And I'll also be taking David Benavidez by knockout.
I'm so sorry to the two of them on their losses.
Oh, my gosh, Chris.
It's not my fault you pick wrong stuff all the time.
Is that what we're doing? All right.
I hope maybe this is the thing that turns it around.
I hope so. I hope I didn't jinx those guys.
At the very least, maybe we found a sport where you can knock a couple out.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can land some punches, if you will.
That one hurt, Craig. I'm not gonna lie. That one hurt.
It was a nice little jab I gave you.
Yeah, because they're both undefeated. They're both heavily favored, and I think most of the public is probably gonna be taking those guys. So I'm with the public. You know?
That sometimes that's good. Sometimes it's bad. I feel like in a fight that's probably better than like in a football game because you're not betting against the spread.
Yeah.
You know, but just straight up, yeah. Okay. So
Yeah.
we'll find out on Monday.
That is crazy, Craig. Man, that was a low blow, man.
It wasn't a low blow. It's one you
Oh.
should have seen. It's a
I should've
right
seen it
cross
coming.
you should have seen coming. It's not my fault you didn't duck.
You're right.
That was a lot of boxing analogies we just pulled off. That was a good extended metaphor. Bravo. We'll take our championship belt. Okay, I'm done. Do you have the Gabby Carl bite, Anthony, ready to go?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Well, as you finish lying to the audience and actually have it pulled up. Okay, you found it. This weekend, Washington Spirit taking on San Diego Wave. This will be the largest crowd in 5 years at Audi Field for the Spirit. This is likely going to be a sellout, and it just might be a record breaker. I was there. Actually, was that the game that we hosted? Clinton and I hosted on the field, or was that the other big Audi game? I think that was the game we hosted on the field back in 2019. It was right off the World Cup. U.S. had just won. Alex Morgan and Orlando Pride were in town. Monster sellout game. Awesome atmosphere. Spirit wound up winning 2-1. Kind of day that I'll never forget. In many ways, that was like the start of my relationship with the Spirit, was that game. And obviously, eventually I worked there and have maintained a great fandom of the club. After I left, they're awesome, giving us players for interviews and everything. And lo and behold, here we are almost 5 years later, 4 years, 10 months later. And Alex Morgan is bringing her team in town again, and it's going to be nearly 20,000 people again. This time, Morgan's with San Diego. Naomi Girma and Jaden Shaw, two of the best young players on the women's national team, are also be there. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. If you like sports, it's the place you want to be in DC tomorrow night. And what's so unique, like obviously every sport, the more home crowd is behind you, you're going to get juiced up, you're going to go. But in a sport that's as tough as soccer, when it gets into that 70th, 80th minute, the crowd can really be a difference maker, egging on a player. And if you don't believe me, ask Gabby Carl, a defender for your Washington Spirit. Oh, wait, I did yesterday.
I think it's always great to feel that support, that energy coming from the crowd. But it's so different when it's your home crowd because you can just feel that energy. It's for you. And being able to reach 16,000, 17,000 fans inside our stadium, it's just such an advantage for us. It really does pull you through. Soccer is a hard sport. When you get to like the 60, 70, 80th minute, you're gassed, and having people in there like sharing their energy with you, cheering for you, it's really something that carries you through.
Gabby Carl, the full interview with her at Hoffman W Sports on YouTube. Again, youtube.com/@HoffmanW Sports. And why her main goal in practice, Anthony, is to not be a victim of the trin spin. Trinity Rodman's signature move where she nutmegs you and spins around you all at once. Yeah, Gabby, who has to guard her in practice or cover her in practice, just her whole goal in practice is to not have that happen to her, which I think is a pretty good goal.
Yeah, that's not a lot of fun, but I would definitely look forward to all those practices.
Yeah, I mean, iron sharpens iron. I mean, yes. Gabby's incredible as
There
well.
it is.
Canadian national team member, very well could make the Olympic team for Team Canada coming up here as they head to Paris. That was a really fun conversation as well, a wide-ranging conversation with Gabby Carl. You can check out at Hoffman or at Hoffman W Sports on YouTube. Anything else, Anthony, outside of Mystic Sky tonight that's on your radar for the weekend? Obviously, NBA Finals tonight. We talked about that as the show has gone. F1's off this weekend. The Euros. That's the other big thing. They kicked off today. Huge. Obviously outside of the World Cup, arguably the biggest soccer tournament international-wise in the world. Certainly for the European countries, it is. The U.S. / America's version, Copa America, will be later this month. But Germany kicked it off. Germany's the host nation. Kicked it off with a 5-1 win over Scotland earlier. So the Euros in full action this weekend. So you get to wake up and watch really good soccer, if that's your thing.
Only other thing I think I'm going to watch, if I have the time anyway, my brother's graduation party is tomorrow. But the Aces take on the Liberty tomorrow at 3 p.m.
Oh, yeah.
Huge game. Hopefully, there's going to be a TV around so I can,
Yeah.
dibble and dabble in.
If not, they put the games on the phone now.
Yeah, I got that too.
Yeah, so you might just have to say, "Oh, what you doing?" "Oh, just keep an eye on the game."
Yeah.
Here on my phone. All eyes on ESA tonight. Mystics Sky. We'll preview it next as we wrap up the Hoffman Show on the Team 980. It is a Friday. It's the last segment of the week here on the Hoffman Show. We're on the Team 980. We're always live as well on the free Odyssey app. You know this by now. Streaming on YouTube at the Team 980. Anthony, you said you got your brother's graduation party this weekend. That's exciting.
Yep, I got that. Also, Father's Day is this weekend.
It is.
Salute to all the fathers out there. But yeah, I low-key have a busy weekend.
Oh, we have a busy day tomorrow. We got some stuff we're doing with friends. We got this little party thing we got to go to / or want to go to. Yep. Then obviously we'll be at Audi Field tomorrow night. What are the chances that you buy a ticket last minute to Audi Field tomorrow night? Are you around, or you got stuff tomorrow night too?
Time is the game.
7:30.
Actually, I can go to the game because the fight is at night, but they won't fight until like 11, 12.
If you were gonna pick one, Anthony, this might just be the one.
Text me after the show.
I was about to say, let me go and look.
I might be able to get you a spot. This is obviously gonna be harder than if you had asked me on a random day when there weren't 19,000 other people going, but I can see what I can do.
Say no more.
So we'll talk. You and me. They'll text after the show.
I would definitely
maybe I'll see you tomorrow at Audi Field. All right, tonight. Wish I had the ability to go over to ESA. I'm gonna watch this one from home. But tonight at the Entertainment and Sports Arena, Mystics and Sky. And unfortunately, Anthony, the Mystics are back to where they were in the not good times where Brittany Sykes is out. This stinks. And she's been their best player this year. She has unfortunately only played about 2.5 games. She comes back. She is incredible in her first game back. The Mystics get their first win of the year, but she hurts her foot in that game. And now we roll into tonight, second game in a week, where they're going to have to face Chicago without her. The Mystics actually officially just announced that Sykes, this is 6 minutes ago on Twitter, Sykes has been diagnosed with a left foot sprain. The injury occurred during the Mystics game on June 11th against Atlanta. She will be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So that's not she will be back in 2 weeks for sure. She'll be reevaluated in 2 weeks. So, yeah, man, like this absolutely sucks because with her, like I think they're more middle of the pack. I'll put it that way. Without her, well, we've seen what the record is. It's not good.
Yeah, I mean, it hurts. Definitely. I'm just glad also though that we were able to get a win though, Craig. I think even though, she played in 14 minutes and her plus minus was insane. I just think, the team will try to, rally around that, build off the win itself, and hopefully, come out. They're at home, so I think that's something to look forward to, and they just got to win. So I think all they can do is, have the next man step up, next woman step up, and then go from there. We already know they're going to come out. They're going to play hard. Their coach has been, begging them to, play defense, and they answered the call to an extent. So
honestly, defensively hasn't been the problem. Like
exactly,
they've played well, especially considering Brittany is the best or one of the 5 best perimeter defenders in the league, and Shakira Austin is a premier rim protector, and she's out tonight and has been out with this hip injury. That's the one. Obviously, I'm very concerned and feel terrible for Brittany because she should be having an all-star caliber year, and instead she's barely played. But when she's been out there, she's been awesome. And, if she could just put together 10, 15 games here, she might be in contention. Well, at this point, the clock's kind of running out quick because the All-Star game's coming up faster than you think because it's the pre-Paris U.S. Olympic team versus other WNBA All-Stars, which is going to be ridiculous because you got, Caitlin Clark and Arike Agumbawale who feel like they were not – I mean, Caitlin doesn't feel like she was snubbed. Arike does. But Caitlin certainly, wishes she had made the team. And it's going to be them versus the players that made it. Well, long story short, Brittany would be fighting for that team, but she can't stay healthy. But Shakira had this hip injury last year, is the future of the franchise, and she is day-to-day, every day, and never getting to the point where she's cleared? What's going on there? Someone needs to do some digging and figure out what's going on with Shakira Austin. But they do take on the Mystics tonight. This is a national TV game. It's on ION, so you will not hear it as far as I know. Right, Anthony? It's not on the schedule tonight?
No.
Okay. Not on the Team 980, but this is one of the 3 or 4 games left in the season that will not be, but pick up with our coverage of the Mystics anytime they're on Monumental Sports starting next week. Anything else, Anthony, to get to? I know we're done early because we got one more U.S. Open update before the end of the show as well. So I think it's barring you saying otherwise, it's time for real things, real people said in real microphones.
Real things.
We're not going to be sucked this year.
Real people.
5 and 11, not very good.
Said into real microphones.
The culture is actually damn good.
All right, and what do we got? I know honestly, you know what? I'm going to make a call here. We have the Satu Sabali bite, yeah? So
Yes, sir.
Satu Sabali is all-star player with the Dallas Wings. She's fantastic, and she's really, really smart, and she is incredibly thoughtful. And she was on Paul George's podcast, and PG asked her about the Caitlin Clark situation, and I really appreciated her answer.
It's really, really hard to put that much pressure on a young woman to be a spokesperson for things that the United States and really globally and historically we have struggled with as an entire society. To make her the spokesperson for that is a lot. But can you talk about white privilege? Yes, you can. But do you have to be the spokesperson for it? I don't think so. If that doesn't come from her, I think it's unfair to put that burden onto someone. But I do think it's good as a society to like have that conversation. Why are we so set on certain things, and why do certain players get more endorsement deals than other players? But I do think she's doing a great job, and I would just tell her, like, I'm proud of you. Keep doing your thing and try to blend out the noise. Everyone has some type of different noise around them, and it looks different for everyone. And she's just now like all eyes on her. And what I hope for her is that she still knows that there's a community of women around her that want her to succeed. Not everyone wants someone to fail. Because if you want someone to fail, like, you're jealous, you're not great if you want someone else to fail, because you can't prove your own greatness, in my opinion. I just hope she knows that. And I don't know, I feel like you guys feel the same way, right? About the collective strength that you have. It's so strong.
I appreciate that from Satu on so many levels. Satu is also German, plays for the German national team. So when she talks about this on a global scale, like, her perspective is just larger than, like, yeah, race in America has been an issue. I don't know how good your history books are, but hadn't been a strong suit for America over our 300 whatever years, or nearly 300 years of existence. But it's not unique to America, and Satu having that perspective is great. I think she also says it incredibly well, that, like, Caitlin Clark is not going to, quote unquote, solve racism. But is there a role to play? Of course. And I think Caitlin's answer that she gave yesterday of, like, hey, do not use me as a weapon because you don't like X, Y, or Z and you want to further your cause of misogyny or racism or sexism. Like, that's not how you don't use my name. And my personal opinion is I have a lot of respect and admiration. And in fact, these women that you're putting down are my idols. So stop that. But I also think the last part that I really appreciate from Satu there is there's this narrative by people who are not very informed that a lot of WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark and are jealous. And are there some? Yeah, probably, because there's 144 people and they're not a monolith. But the vast majority of them are behind her, and it's a sisterhood, and they want her to succeed. And I appreciate Satu for saying that. That's our show. We'll see you Monday. Have a great weekend.